My physical copy of Danmaku Unlimited 3 arrived today, so I thought, even though it's been out a while, I'd stick up a review. It's the first game on any system ever I've done the digital physical double dip on, which ought to give you a bit of a clue as to how this review is going to go. This physical edition from Limited Run Games comes with a little manual and some sort of collector's card, which is all very nice, and the manual especially looks good, but really I just wanted it because I have such a deep appreciation for the game itself. To find out why that is, let's get into the review itself. Now, Danmaku Unlimited 3 is, surprise surprise, a Danmaku. Now, the words bullet hell get bandied about a little bit loosely sometimes these days. Most recently I saw Anger Force Reloaded described as one, but in this case we have an example of the real deal. Particularly when fighting bosses, the screen is filled with bullets and you are nipping in and out of the tiny pieces of screen real estate that remain danger-free. Your basics here are deceptively simple. You have 2 shots and a bomb. Your bomb can be set to either activate just as you're about to get hit, effectively acting as an extra life, or only when you push the button. Your 2 other attacks consist of a regular shot and a focus shot, which is more powerful but slows your movement speed. One thing I love, and that adds a nice, really unforced aspect of replayability, is that at the start of your game you choose from multiple variations of your 2 shots. However, many are locked behind finishing in-game achievements that range from the fairly simple to the hardcore to those that simply require a bit of perseverance. This is a great system to keep you coming back, since you're often just one game, maybe, if you do well, away from getting a new shot, and then of course you're going to want to try that shot out, and then, yeah, it's a smart system and also adds a welcome bit of variety to how you play. The game is heavily based around its graze mechanic, and even though there's no actual rumble effect, the click as you constantly skirt with death adds a really satisfying, almost tactile sensation to the obvious points and power charging rewards within the game itself. It's not just grazing though. After defeating an enemy, that enemy's already fired bullets change to spirit shots, which can be swept up to maintain your graze counter. This is important as going more than a second or 2 without adding to the counter drops it back to 0. Before you start the game, you're given the option of 2 styles of play, spirit mode or graze mode, with graze being the more advanced of the 2. In this mode, bullets do not turn to spirits, and this makes the game not just more difficult, but forces you to alter the way you play. This is one of many examples of ways in which the game offers variety in subtle ways, prompting you to try out different tactics and playstyles. Most of the bullets in the game move relatively slowly, although the patterns are frequently intense, and the game can slip you into that trance-like state that only the best bullet hells can. And the patterns aren't just intense, they're also very inventive, with new and unusual spreads and forms of projectiles combining with more traditional classic formations. Grazing, as mentioned, powers up your ship, allowing you to enter a souped up spirit mode. You can choose whether this activates manually or triggers automatically when your meter fills, with the obvious advantages and disadvantages each choice brings. Once your meter is filled, you either use it or it just sits there. You can't stockpile these. And since enemies killed while in this mode give a score boost, there's a bit of thought behind whether to let loose early and rack up those bonus points, or save your strength for the boss. Bosses, by the way, are multi-stage. And by that I don't mean 2, I mean 5 or more. And in a further twist, they flawlessly completing any stage of a boss gives further bonuses. The smaller enemies come in an unrelenting stream with the different types, which require varying amounts of hits to take down, often mixed together in single waves. This means you're constantly faced with the decision of whether to plough on through a ream of minor craft or focus on taking down a couple of the bigger boys. All these mechanics together mean in Danmaku Unlimited 3, you are never simply cruising along, blasting anything that moves in any order. You've always got decisions to make, tactics to consider, and that keeps the whole game, even the very first stage, endlessly engaging throughout multiple plays. Before we move on to the visuals, let's have a quick look through the menus where we can find multiple difficulties, a boss rush mode, leaderboards, and yes, that all-important Tate mode support, as well as the aforementioned spirit or graze modes and shot choices. And these menus are a great place to jump into the visuals since right from the off they set the tone for the simple, smooth and elegant design of the game. Everything, right down to the fonts that introduce the stages, feels like it had thought put into it and fits perfectly into a single holistic design philosophy that permeates the whole experience. Before playing, I had read the backgrounds were rather pretty, but to be honest, until I watched my footage for this review, I'd always had to take that on faith, as when you're actually playing the game, your eyes don't have a chance to do anything other than track the mesmeric ebb and flow of the bullets. In-game visuals are crisp and clear, and everything from the enemies and your ship to your hitbox and the bullets, both live and spirit, are always clearly demarcated despite the fairly restricted use of colour. You never have to worry about being clipped by a hidden bullet here. Every time I died, I always saw it coming and I knew exactly why it happened. I simply wasn't quick enough to do anything about it. When the palette does switch things up, it brings with it a sense of novelty that heightens excitement and gets your heart racing. And talking of heart racing, that's soundtrack. Alternating between fast-paced pounding rhythms that quicken the pulse and cool melodic moments that are at times tinged with an almost wistful hint of sadness, Blankfield has done some stellar work here. The sound effects themselves are top-notch too, and add yet another layer of engagement with the game. From the moment you load up this game to the moment you beat the last boss, Danmaku Unlimited 3 offers a complete and perfectly realised vision of what it was supposed to be. Perhaps that's because it's almost entirely the work of a single man, but whatever the reason, it's a game that should definitely be in your collection. I have a lot of shmups on Switch and I dip in and out of most of them on a fairly regular basis. But there are a few that are always at or near the top of my recently played list, and this is definitely one of them. There are very few shmups, very few games full stop that have so relentlessly drawn me back into them over and over again as Danmaku Unlimited 3. I've tried hard to think of any notable flaws and come up empty-handed. Online leaderboards would be nice, and sometimes the ship designs, the enemy design is a little bit too similar, but these are minor problems. Incredible to think that this was a port from mobile, and a reminder to never judge a game on superficial evidence. This is not just one of my favourite shmups on Switch, this is one of my favourite gaming experiences of all time, and I have no hesitation in giving it a glowing recommendation and a score of 9.5. So have you played this? Did you love it as much as I did, or do you think my praise is over the top? Let me know either way, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!